Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. Let me take you back 15 years. 15-year-old me, half my life ago, was on Wikipedia looking up the 2007 World of Poker Main Event results. I see Scotty Nguyen finishing in 11th place, one of my favorite players, a Prince of Poker, a past main event champion. I was like, that's pretty close to the final table. I wonder how that happened. Fast forward a few weeks, ESPN turns on, and we see late in the season, two tables left. Scotty Nguyen on the TV table with a lot of chips. I'm watching, how did he go out in 11th place? All of a sudden, this guy named Philip Hilm is playing hand after hand against Scotty, like locked into him and taking all his chips. What the heck's going on here? Fast forward this year, 15 years later, we are trying to find the best and coolest guest to have on our podcast. I find Philip Hilm on Facebook. He replies almost instantly, I would love to talk to you guys. And so here we go. We have him, the man whose poker accomplishments made newspaper headlines around the globe, the man who broke the Prince of Poker, Scotty Nguyen, the man who could stare a hole in your heart with just his gaze, the only man with the courage to fight back against Jerry Yang at the final table, coming to us from a quarter of the way across the globe, Philip Hilm. Thank you for joining us, Philip.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, so let's just dive right into it here. So you've described yourself in a couple interviews as being a lifelong learner and a lifelong nerd. How did your nerddom express itself when you were a child?
How I saw myself as a nerd as a child?
Yeah.
I was into computers, I was into games, I was into math. And for me, all of those things were natural. I wanted to solve puzzles, I wanted to solve riddles. And my biggest question was, why are my peers not like that? They wanted to, play in it's like kind of regular ways. For me, it was all about puzzles and riddles and math. I thought that was cool.
Did that sort of interest when you were younger get you into poker? How did you get into poker in the first place?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true. I had some friends who played backgammon, and they did really well, professional level, world championships, everything. And I felt that for me, the game itself was too much math. I always, I like it, but I could see that I needed other aspects, not just the mathematical side. So when they said, the next big thing is poker, we're all switching. It was like, oh, I can combine math and some psychology, some interaction. Okay, let me try that.
Mm-hmm. Was it hard for you to develop your skills in terms of reading people, given how much of a math mentality you had?
It was probably the other way around because as a younger person, I found that I lacked this ability. What came natural to other people, I needed to put in an effort. So I made a conscious effort of studying people, reading about it, really doing research, and I reached the point where I could look at a person, I could read them, and I could explain exactly why do I get this read that I'm getting. So this conscious effort, I felt really helped me playing poker later on.
Gotcha. And so, what year would you say really kind of did your poker career begin?
Oh, it must have been early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. So around the Moneymaker sort of win in 03, kind of during the early poker boom?
Yeah, probably around that time. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And how did you develop your skills during those first few years?
I read a lot of books.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I played a lot of poker online. Um, so I was broke at the time, completely broke. And Christmas was coming up, and I couldn't buy Christmas presents for anyone. And I could see it, it's 2 months out and I'm broke. I took a job. I was in a supermarket. I was presenting coffee machines. Would you like it to try this coffee, sir, man? Um, and it was awful. It was horrible. Pay was low. Hours were hideous. It was just awful. Then the first salary I got of around, I don't know, $1,000 or so, I deposited maybe half of it online and immediately lost everything. And I deposited the rest and I won. And I just won from there. And within 2 weeks or so, I was making way more than my salary just playing poker online.
Wow. And so I know that even before you played the main event in 07, you had a couple of pretty big EPT poker scores, including a final table. What was that experience like for you when you were still, getting your feet wet in the poker world?
It was very, very interesting. I think it was my first big live tournament was the EPT in Copenhagen, which I made it to the final table. And it's interesting that you mentioned because at the final table, EPT in Copenhagen, I made a mistake. And that mistake is directly linked to how I played in the WSOP at that final table. I had an opportunity to bluff or semi-bluff an opponent, and I didn't do it. And he went on to win that tournament. And I lost because I didn't try to bluff him. It turns out he was bluffing me.
I see.
But he bluffed me all in, and I couldn't call him with my draw. But he would have had no chance to call if I had bluffed first.
Now, you also cashed at the World Series of Poker in 2005. What were your first experiences in Vegas like?
Oh, interesting. Overwhelming, let's say. That city, it's just incredible, otherworldly, different. Everything is intense. I'm happy that I don't live there, but it's a blast going there. I love going there. Every time, it's 2-3 weeks, maybe a month or so. Fantastic.
Yeah. Were you always a Texas Hold'em player, or did you also try a few other games here and there, both online and live?
Oh, lots of different stuff. Lots of different stuff. I've tried so many games. Played the tournaments, played the cash games, played the sit and go, short-handed, full ring, heads up, limit, no limits, pot limits, Omaha, 5-card, 6-card, different stuff.
Gotcha.
So when you were going to prepare for the World Series of Poker in 2007, what was going through your head? How were you preparing for the main event?
There was a newspaper article, at least in the Danish newspapers, that said Philip Hilm predicts he's going to win the WSOP 2007, because I had just played the EPT finals in Monaco. Leading up to that, and I felt very, very confident in my game and how I was playing. That tournament, really, really built my confidence, and I felt right now I'm at the peak. I am reading people like I felt it was almost unfair. Like to at times, it felt like I can see your cards, even though I couldn't, but it felt that way.
Yeah, Phil Hellmuth always talks about his white magic reading ability, and it seems like that was definitely alive in Philip Hilm world there at the time. The 07 main event was a unique beast in that the years prior, the event had been growing at a huge level year to year, and then recent restrictions on American online poker had kind of made the 07 main event more of an international, less American-focused vibe, which led to a good number of non-Americans at the final table, including Alex Kravchenko, for example. Did that influence your decision to go in for that particular main event? How many main events had you played prior to 07?
No, I played a few prior. I played a few prior. I was playing it every year for a number of years back then. I did fine, but only once made it to the final table.
So going into the main event and your particular performance, you don't appear into coverage until day 4, but what were your first 3 days in the tournament like?
Um, Basically, the playing style that you saw on TV, very very aggressive, very trying to dominate every table that I was on. That was my playing style. I mixed it in with a lot of patience because that tournament in particular, and there was no break. The final table was just those same weeks. It wasn't after a month or something.
Mhm.
We were playing upwards of 16 hours daily. Yeah, for 2 weeks. So at the end of the day, everyone wanted to go home and just continue to the next day. That's when you can really, really pounce. Nobody wants to bust the last 1 or 2 hours. You can accumulate so many chips at this point, but you need to stay focused. You need to stay awake. You need to be clear for it. You need to be at your best when everyone else is falling asleep and just holding on.
Mm.
This particular main event was actually a main event full of both American celebrities and obviously the usual top pros playing. Do you have any moments of any of these, famous players or famous celebrities in the field during the tournament?
I don't recall if it was in that particular tournament, but I have played with various number of different
Yeah.
celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
Tobey Maguire who plays Spider-Man was in the field. You had Hollywood directors. You had Les Moonves. All these Sully Erna, a lot of celebrities in that year particularly. So,
yeah. No, I saw them. I saw them in the room, but no, I don't think I played those particular people. I played. I think it was that year. Uh, Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
Yes.
Yeah, George. So the day prior to the tournament starting, he was trying to brush up his skills at a cash game, and I was right next to him. So we played this cash game together. It was quite fun.
Wow.
Mm. And also, in addition to the celebrities that were there, you had, I mean, such an incredible cast of characters in the 2007 main event. What were your interactions with people like Kavad Khan like?
I liked him. I thought he was genuinely cool, friendly. He played up a lot for the cameras and did his dance and stuff. But no, I think he was a good guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You kind of make your television debut on day 4 when you're on the featured table with the chip leader at the time, Dario Minieri, the young kid with the scarf, and he has just this overwhelming chip lead, and he's just like handing out chips all across the table the whole episode, and you're more like watching this action than actually being in the hands of him. Was there any sort of entertainment just watching this young kid just kind of basically hand his chip lead over to the whole table?
It was interesting. He got a lot of attention. I remember this quite clearly,
Yeah.
and he found some, should we call it, alternative lines in his play that I was slightly surprised about.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. So as you're, sitting there at the table watching Dario Minieri and other players, how are you staying focused? What are you sort of observing in the other players that you can bring into your gameplay?
Oh, this is a good question because, as you may have noticed, I do observe all the time.
Yeah.
And so when I'm playing, I always observe everything that is happening on the table, who is playing what and how. And I lay out a game plan because the difference between, you sit for 3 hours, 4 hours, and you don't catch a hand, and then you get aces. If you're not prepared, you're going to lose your, everything, your whole composure, and everything goes wrong. I have a plan. I know exactly how am I going to play those aces against which player in what situation. How am I going to deal with everything that can arise? I know it ahead of time, so I notice what players are doing, what other players are observing, because if other players are observing like me, but I notice there's someone else who isn't, then I can make a marketing play against the unobservant player, but I'm actually doing it to show the guy that is observing. So there's a lot of meta game in it.
Yes. That sounds like it takes a lot of focus, a lot of energy. What was your fuel? What food or drinks were you relying on to kind of keep your energy level going for 16 hours a day at this point?
Nothing in particular.
Oh, really?
Just
Into
yeah, no, nothing in particular. Just regular, whatever there's available. Go to the food stand, grab a I don't know, fruit salad or whatever they had.
Yeah.
You had a lot of interactions with players and, in between hands and also during hands. How did you use table talk?
That's also a good question because I do use it. And like I just said, this about having a plan. If I'm talking with someone, we're in the middle of the conversation. I already know my plan. So I don't have to focus. I can still go on talking. But another player, if they go silent suddenly, oh, thank you for revealing that information.
Yeah. And then later on that day 4, after you were with Manieri on the TV table, that whole table gets moved to the outer tables, but the table is still the same table. And there's a great hand between you and Dario where Dario is all in and you call him with kind of a combo draw, a flush and straight draw, and Dario has this like almost incredulous, like upset head shaking look, like as if what he called me was that hand. Again, one of the funniest times of the main event that year for me personally watching on TV. When you're on the outer tables compared to the TV table, some players tend to kind of their gameplay changes a little bit. Is that something that you're able to take advantage of sometimes when that happens?
Sometimes it catches me a bit by surprise, because that particular hand, I remember it clearly.
Yeah.
And so the situation was, I made an evaluation, Dario, that he's an accomplished player. He will do the math, he will make his calculations. And the bet that I made was, professional style signaling, I'm drawing you into the pot. There is no way I will fold this hand. You will have to call the last bet, which is usually stronger than going outright all in. But then he tried to bluff me. I'm already in for 80-90% of my chips, and you are trying to re-bluff me out. So yeah, that's why he was surprised. He must have miscalculated the pot and the chips. So would he have done that if it wasn't the featured table? Possibly. I don't know. I was surprised that he didn't pick up on this. There is no way that I can ever fold this hand.
And speaking of, being at the feature table and being under the cameras and the bright lights, what was your experience with ESPN like?
There was a lot of attention, but for me it was good and I liked it. And yes, for a lot of people, this is some added kind of pressure, which to me is beneficial. Great. If you feel uncomfortable being caught on TV, to my benefit, right?
Yeah. How did the interview process work? Did they interview you after the final table, pre-final table action was done? Did they grab you during like a break for like a few minutes here and there, or was it more of a they did a little bit every day until you lost, or how did that work?
It wasn't just ESPN. There were several bloggers as well, and they would come up to the tables, and talk. There would be lots of pictures during play, and the cameras quite intense. And whenever there's a big hand or something going on, for sure there are cameras focused on it.
Yeah.
And in terms of
it's an ongoing thing. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. In terms of the people that you were with, your rail, were you having conversations with them on breaks, or would they help you break down hands at the end of the day?
I was very, very focused. I was so focused, and we had these 16 hours daily. after hours, some of my colleagues and friends, they would, discuss hands. I did it during the day, maybe at lunch or something like that. But at the end of the day, I had had so much poker that I'm like, I can't. I'm full. I need to switch off and come back tomorrow.
And so moving on to kind of to day 5, this is back when the main event was 6 days and then the final table. So by day 5, you have 1.2 million chips. There's only maybe 100 or something players left at this point. Is there any added pressure the deeper you get into this main event, or are you able to kind of keep those thoughts out of your head and really focus on making it to the next day?
It was not about making it to the next day. There was always one focus: go and win this. Make the best play in every single situation. If I miss a chance to bluff, that's the wrong play. If I don't extract enough value, that's the wrong play. If I overplay a hand, that's the wrong play. Make the best play in every single situation.
Was there any thoughts about changing your style up, or were you fairly comfortable with the game that you were playing?
I always try to adapt, regardless of, it's not that I have a static style, which is this aggressive, dominating style, but it did seem to fit very well with this particular field. It worked out quite good. So I was comfortable playing like that, but I would have been comfortable taking a more relaxed approach too. Waiting, more patience, certainly.
Now, my natural inclination was to think that because so many hundreds or thousands of players that would have played on like online satellites weren't playing in this particular year because of the ban on American poker, that might have made the field maybe a bit more difficult compared to maybe the last couple of main events. Did you find that was at all a factor compared to your brief dabbles in the main event a few years, or was it more or less the same altogether?
To me, it was kind of beneficial. Like there's this saying, don't try to bluff a bad player. Yeah. So it's easier if people have, let's say, enough experience to get into certain routines and get into their playing style. I can read their playing style. I can see what's going on, what's happening. If it's people who won a qualifier, maybe they're not as experienced, and you need more patience because you really, really need the cards to beat them.
So going into day 6, you've got a very healthy stack with 36 people left. Are you saying to yourself, I got to build my stack as much as possible? Are you thinking about the final table or winning at all? Or are you just trying to stay focused on the action that day?
Always staying focused in the moment. Make the best decision at every single point. And the patience to stay till the end of the day, because at the end of the day, and I know this in advance, there will be this window where I can steal chips left, right, and center.
Gotcha. And pretty much for the last couple of days before the final table, you were in the top 10 in the chip counts, pretty much from those days from start to finish. So your style is clearly working. You've probably got a lot of confidence in that, even as the field's shrinking, that your game is working. You made this self-proclamation that you were going to win the whole thing, and you're backing up those words with some real great poker play. Was the reaction back home at the time kind of really ramping up as you're making it day to day, or did you sort of stay away from hearing updates from back home, or was your phone being just bombarded with messages like, oh my god, how is this, you're doing great?
Well, I had a lot of my poker colleagues and friends right there. I did, of course, I got some messages from back home, but these 16-hour days, when I came home, I just needed to sleep.
Yeah.
So getting into some of the action, Sorry, getting into the action on day 6 here. There's a hand against a player named Brian where he shoves all in on you, you call, and then Kenny Tran offers a 1K side bet with you. Would you have actually made that side bet, or were you, sort of just trying to get table talk?
Yeah, no. He offered a 10K side bet, and I didn't have 10K. I offered let's do a 1K because we can settle it right now. But I wasn't comfortable with making a 10K side bet. I don't know him. It's the first time I meet him. Will he honor the side bet or will he not? Because what's happening? Am I offering a free roll? And he said no. We will only take it if it's 10K. He wouldn't take 1K. I almost stopped the action. I almost said, okay, can we stop? Because I wanted to take it. I just wanted certainty that it was a real bet. I had what did I have? Ace King versus Jack 10 or something like that.
Yes.
So I'm like, yes, certainly this is a good bet. Let's let's go. I just want to be sure that it's real.
Yeah, Kenny Tran, he actually made a deep run in the main event this year, finishing almost in the same spot he did 15 years ago. So that's kind of funny when I was watching that main event this year. Kenny Tran was one of the big names with only a couple tables left. Obviously, Scotty Nguyen was in there. Lee Watkinson was a fairly top pro at the time too. Obviously, you were there as well. When the action gets down to the final 2 tables, you're really kind of locked into that table until the final table, and the tables merge into one table. So when you're with 2 tables left, Scotty Nguyen is on your right, and you at first the table talk's pretty nice. You mentioned your green monkey card protector. Was there any story behind that card protector?
Yeah, actually, I went to Thailand with some very lovely friends, a partner I had at the time, and I got that green monkey there, and it was a symbol for us of this is I don't it was something like this is what monkeys do when they want to be intimidating or something like that. They do this posture and this kind of sideward stare or something. So I had the monkey for intimidation. Did it work? The little green monkey.
So, I mean, Scotty Nguyen comes to your table and he's obviously the hometown hero. He has a long background in poker. Do you take that into account when you're playing against him?
Only that I know of him. I know that he's Scotty Nguyen, obviously, and that we have easy topics. There's I can make table talk.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's you versus Scotty is kind of a boxing match really in this main event. It's really kind of 4 rounds in the ESPN broadcast. Scotty takes round 1 when he turns a full house when you kind of bluff shove, because he's got a short stack by this point. And you have a healthy stack at this point, and so he doubles up through you. When you see his cards, you kind of do like a stare into the corner of your eye, like ugh, on camera, and then from there, I think Scotty's ego really kind of jumps up. His whole game shifts from that point. Did it feel like there was a turning point in how he was approaching the table with once he got some chips there?
Or was that it was even before that? It was even before he got the chips. I sensed very early on that he was getting a bit agitated. So I deliberately pushed the table talk to get under his skin, and it seems it worked. If you go back and you watch interviews with Scotty, he won this big WSOP tournament, 8 game or something like that. The subsequent year,
it was the year after.
Yes, the next year. But up until that point, every interview he gets, he's talking about how he is off his game and how he's annoyed and someone got under his skin. He's mentioning it every single time for a year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So getting into the big hand between you and Scotty, where you have 8-5 and he has ace-3. Do you recall that hand? What was sort of going through your mind as you were going through that?
The ace-3, ace. Which
So
hand? I don't recall this one.
So Scotty raises pre-flop with ace-3. You defend with 8-5. Flop gives you middle pair. Scotty raises after you bet the flop, and then you shove the turn. He folds, but he kind of like he asks you after you go all in, $4 million you have total, and you kind of like you're standing up and you kind of go to count your chips. He says never mind, just leave it. So you're kind of like you're like kind of like on a string trying to and answer his question, and he kind of tank folds the ace high, which I mean he's probably never calling up ace high. That was
Probably not. But I had didn't I turn trips or something like that?
There. Yes, you did.
Yeah, that's how I recall it. Okay, so I did turn trips. Yes, that was just part of this ongoing psychological battle we had.
Mm-hmm.
That he was he deliberately thinking of calling me? Obviously not. But he was trying to play mind games the other way around.
Yeah, and the table talk. We've seen table talk from both friendly to very contentious in the main event. Every year there's some yours and Scotty's. It's kind of contentious without getting like overly, abusive or angry. It's just more kind of not unpleasant, but you're definitely more composed when you're talking to Scotty than vice versa. So did you feel like at that point you really kind of had him where you wanted him?
So I knew that I got under his skin.
Yeah.
I knew that he was agitated, and I knew that he would make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the whole point. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, with 11 players, this is with 11 players left in the main event. So this is really, when the nitty gritty is happening. The pay jumps are kicking in. Final table is only a few hands away, really, at that point, and your game plan is working. So that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting too. Your interactions with other players. You have Raymond Rami, and you're fist bumping him and being seemingly a little more friendly toward him than you were towards Scotty Nguyen. Was that part of the game plan as well?
So the thing is, I'm usually my baseline is that I'm friendly. Only if someone reacts, if I sense this uneasiness, like in Scotty, then I pick up on it and I can poke it in a friendly way, not over the top, not nothing bad, but yeah, my baseline is I'm friendly. Why not?
No,
We can have good conversations, but I use it as well. Like this, we talked about if the table talk stops, if someone is focused, yes, I'm friendly, but I also picked up a tell.
Mm-hmm. And so I know, like one of your words to Scotty was "Thank you, Scotty." Whenever he'd like call a bet from you because you're trying to draw him into the hand, and that really kind of reaches its peak with the infamous Ace Queen Pocket Fives hand, where again you have position on Scotty almost every single hand at that table except for when he's the button. And when that 5 comes on that flop, how good does that feeling when you flop a set in the main event with 2 tables left? Is that how, like, from 1 to 10? How good is that feeling when you get that set?
Oh, but you see, I had planned this ahead. I planned this ahead of time. How am I going to take Scotty's chips? When I finally get the hand, how am I going to extract them from him? So my plan was ready before it came, before it happened.
Yeah.
And for me, does it feel good? No. Now is the time to execute the plan. I still need to play this hand the best way that I can. There's no time to celebrate. Yeah, I have a great hand, but in celebrating it, I could throw it all away.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Was that something that you had difficult with previously, that, I have a game plan in my head, but now I have to stay focused and execute the plan?
I wouldn't say difficult, but I had become acutely aware the importance of it, and I felt that I was able to do it, even having friendly table talk with one or more people at the table. So I could still keep it. I was so in my game that I could do it, and that's why I had this confidence. These days, when I haven't played for as long as I have, it would be more challenging. You need to have this routine. Just playing it needs to be second nature.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Then you can achieve it.
Mhm. And speaking of achieving, you achieve Scotty kind of trapping himself because in that hand where you flop a set, Scotty kind of overshoves the pot with second pair, and of course you snap call with the set. And with there, you take the lion's share of Scotty's chips. He was at one point at like 17 million chips with 11 players left, which would have been well above the chip average at the final table. I think you go up to like 16 million at that point. Scotty's down to 3 million. The blinds are pretty sizable by this point, and so obviously your game plan really kind of bears a lot of fruit in that point. And Scotty kind of tilts the rest off on a flush draw on a couple hands later to you. And when he busts, was there was there any sort of agitation from him? Or did he just kind of walk away? Did he say anything to you when he left, or was it just kind of a stand up and leave the table moment?
He said absolutely nothing. He stood up and he walked away without a word.
Mm-hmm.
He was done. He was done. He was. I don't know. Usually, players come up and shake hands,
Yeah.
good game or something like that. Not Scotty. He was not happy.
Mhm. Did the atmosphere in the room change when he busted?
He had a huge following. He had a huge crowd. Obviously, he was probably the most famous, popular player. I almost felt sorry for him and for his fans. you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I see it. I understand why he's popular. I think he did well. I think he's cool. I like him as a player. I like to watch him play.
Mm-hmm.
I also like to take him out, but those things can exist simultaneously.
So after Scotty busts, the 10 players all combine into one table before we're down to 9 players. And of the other players at the table, were there any players that you had not played with at all leading up until till then, or did you have a little bit of experience playing with everybody who was left at that point?
The one that I had probably played the least with,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, yeah, was ended up being my nemesis.
Jerry Yang, gotcha.
Jerry Yang. So Jerry Yang, we went to the final table and um, misread him. I made a I made a bad read.
Yes.
Well, before we get right to the final table, I just wanted to ask about, the time between, the 10-handed, the Steve Garfunkel busts and the final table starting. You're the chip leader. What was going through your head in terms of preparing for the final table? Did you decide to keep the same game plan? What was your thoughts about what your opening hands would be like?
Yeah, no, keep the same game plan. I had been playing with most of these players,
Mhm.
and price increases they are quite the price increases are quite steep. So I knew, as happened, that a lot of players would be very, very cautious and very, very careful.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
Um, if you if a super aggressive player pushes all in with a medium to shallow stack and you fold queens over pair, for instance, um, that's to me that's cautiousness. That's over cautiousness,
Yes, and
which I
it
wanted to
happens.
take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, who did you feel was your biggest competition of the other 8 players prior to that final table beginning?
I've been Hevat Khan.
Hmm.
Yeah, him. I played with him the day before. We had a lot of hands together. I found a very, very nice situation because he was quite aggressive too. And I expected him to come out and try and bully the table because he had done the day prior. But he didn't. He didn't. I made I made a squeeze play on him where I think he has been re-raising a lot of pots, and there are people who are they just the table they just fold his re-raises.
Yeah.
So I enter a hand with some suited connector, 2-3 callers, and he does a re-raise.
Yeah.
So I push over the top, all in, squeeze everyone out, and it's back to him, and he has jacks, and he's sitting and thinking, and he ends up folding it. But this is an example. This was a tough spot, and I needed to make that re-raise to pick up that pot. Of course, having some outs and being able to catch up if he would call. But if I had laid down and just given up my initial raise, that would have been wrong. That I wouldn't have had the chips and the opportunity to even get to the final table.
So 2007 was the last year before the November 9. Was that something that you would have liked to have a 3-month break and then play the final table?
Yeah, for sure. That would have been great. 3 months. It didn't have to be 3 months, but I was quite exhausted from all these long days. So intense, so much in a row.
And so now we get to the day of the final table. You have 22 million chips, which puts you just a little bit above second place, but you still have a healthy lead over a lot of the shorter stacks. And what's lost in the ESPN episodes that you're in is that you actually won 4 of the first 13 hands. I think most of it all pre-flop. You were raising pre-flop, taking a few chips, so you were actually up a bit when you started actually scoring off against Jerry Yang. And during the other hands that you weren't a part of, Yang was just kind of running over the other players. Lee Childs had probably one of the worst folds I've ever seen at a final table, folding queens face up of all things to Yang.
Don't show them if you do that.
Yeah, like so when these big hands are happening and you're not in the pots. What are sort of things you're really kind of locked in on when you're trying to gain information?
So Jerry Yang was playing more hands than I was, and he was winning more of them, bigger hands. He came to the table with what, 4 million or something like that.
I think he had 9 million or something. He was like in 7th place when the action began.
Okay, but he built that quite strongly, and he was winning 3, 4, 5 hands in a row, like back to back.
Yeah.
Which was suspicious. I mean, when you can see his cards on video, then it's easier to see what's going on. But if someone has a 100% rate of playing 5 hands in a row, that's suspicious. So I wanted to contest what is, where are we? What's going on? Yeah. And he just came out strong. It was like all in every hand. So I expected that he was being too aggressive, that his game plan was just push before someone else pushes. And it wasn't. He just had a great run of cards, and that's that's it.
Yeah. So getting into the hand where you have King Queen and Yang has 8s, you mentioned that you misread him. Where did the misread come from? What were you sort of thinking that he had?
It wasn't that particular hand. That particular hand, I wanted to see, are you going to push another barrel? Because he bet the flop. He flop trips. So, I understand he bets.
Yeah.
But looking back at it with trips, he did everything to, win the pot right then and there. Not try to extract value from me, but just to win it outright. I felt that he would come out betting, or I wanted to test if he would come out betting, and I also had a gut shot. So I think I needed a jack or something
Yes.
to have the top straight.
Yes.
In which case, I had the game plan if that would happen.
I understand, yeah. And Yang's pre-flop raise size was very large. He was raising 4x, 10x pre-flop, which at the time I think 3x was a bit more of the usual in 07, I think. Did you read? Was that at all something that you took note of that you thought was fishy in his game as well?
I should have. More than I did, because you're right. The pre-flop raises, the sizing, that was weird. But the blinds were so substantial also,
Yeah.
that, and with the antes, that if you allow someone to even at a 5x to take down every pot, they are winning tremendously. I mean, they're gaining so much value, and he got a free pass. I wanted to stop him because he was getting free pass.
Yeah, I mean, it really seemed like it was you and Yang who were the two players at the table trying to win. It seemed like everybody else was sort of trying to ladder up. Was that playing a role in your mentality at the table?
Oh, for sure, certainly, because if it's me and Yang, let's say, who are trying to steal and to win, then we're sharing with each other. If I can break Yang, if I can take him out, then I'm going to be the only one to dominate the table. I wanted that situation.
Yeah, Samus mentioned before that he felt that this was a relatively soft final table, that he didn't think that the quality of play by the table overall was up to the standard that many other final tables and other main event years really were. Because you had guys like Tuan Lam kind of in hibernation. Kavad Khan was definitely not his usual self. Kravchenko was very short stacked, and obviously you and Yang were kind of driving the action early on with. You both had a lot of chips basically after a few hands. Yang was chipping up there, and it really felt like whoever won that showdown would probably take the whole thing down, because in a lot of ways your games have some similarities. Putting your opponents in tough spots, not being afraid to put in a big bet or a big raise to kind of really drive the action. And the hand that you find that you went all in on was a 39 million chip pot, which was about a third of the chips in play with still have 9 players left. So really, I really believe that had you hit that flush draw or that 2 pair of trips on the Turner River there, you probably would have cruised to a pretty strong grasp on that table for the rest of the night. Was that part of why you think squaring off against Jerry? This was in back-to-back hands, the King Queen hand and then your 8-5 hand. Was that kind of going through your head of, if I win this thing, Jiang is probably he's gonna have like 5 or 6 million chips if he loses that hand, even with his big stack. What was that your mentality there? Is that you're probably gonna given, I mean, it's only about like an hour into the action at this point, maybe in like 45 minutes early on?
Yeah, it was quick. But yes, so exactly the situation you described.
Yeah.
Like, you felt that if I had won that hand, I would have had good chances. And now Jerry Yang won that hand, and then he went on to win the tournament.
Yeah.
That was my assessment. That was exactly my assessment.
Yeah.
I played to win the tournament, not to climb the ladder. I played to win the tournament.
Yeah.
People forget I got a lot of people disagreeing with the way that I played it. which, you know, it's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I would still do the same.
Mhm.
And I think people forget that first prize is not just first prize. It's not climbing the ladder. There are so many additional things, sponsorships and benefits and all that that you get from first prize. So shooting for the first place, the difference between first and second is more than just the prize money.
Mm-hmm. Now, to play devil's advocate here, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, if you take out Yang, he's the only other player who's playing to win, and then you'll have it all to yourself. But couldn't you also say, hey, I've got 7 other players at the final table who are trying to ladder up. I can bully them. So I'm going to focus on them, try to build up my stack that way, and then go after Yang.
Yes and no, because I wanted to bully them. Like you said, I did come out bullying. I took a pot pre-flop in which Hevat Khan was involved.
Mhm.
But then Yang started bullying. Every time he is bullying, what am I supposed to? Then I back off and I just let go and say, yeah, okay, I cannot be involved in this hand.
Mhm.
No, I don't want this opportunity to pass by. I want to be able to bully every opportunity I have, every opportunity I get.
You know, I think something that I noticed was that every main event has different. Some of them have different payout structures, so the pay jumps are smaller or bigger when you compare year to year. I felt that the pay jumps actually were pretty weak in '07. Like first place was the usual like 8.5 million, but then like second place was a pretty was like what 4 point something million. But then the first like 5 pay jumps are like 70,000, 80,000, not that big. So I feel like you know going for first, I think mathematically it definitely makes more sense because just folding and going out in eighth, it's only a couple thousand really more than the ninth place, and so I back you on the pay jumps mentality there. So cover after you bust the hands, you know we'll sort of gloss over that. Did you stick around to watch the rest of the final table, or did you kind of want to get space from the table and you know have your time to yourself after that?
Oh, I no, I left. I did some you know after game interviews,
Hmm.
and I just wound down, relaxed. It's an exhausting tournament. I mean, it's so intense for so long time
Yeah.
that when I'm out, it's like almost collapsing. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, in the months afterward, you were described as, you know, your performance as having blown up or that you blew it, so to speak. Did you feel like you had this reputation as the guy who blew up at the final table, or are you able to just sort of still stay focused on your game?
Um, I felt that I was able to stay focused on my game,
Mhm.
but it was a very different experience because from then on, a lot more people knew me. When I would go into a casino, people had seen me. People knew who I was. People had seen me on TV. People knew more of my, let's say, maybe preferred game plan. Uh, and so the this super aggressiveness was not as easy to pull off because I was exposed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the biggest controversy from that entire main event was actually the colors of the actual chips that were in play. You had a lot of kind of orangey pink like chips. Was that actually a factor at the table with you or other players? Because you had like the orange 5K chips, like the peach 25K, and then like the pink 50K. Was that at all a problem for you or anyone else at the table, or is that more just kind of Wikipedia bait on that matter?
For me personally, it was not an issue because I keep track of everyone's chip counts. I have a mental note. I know, you know, who has how much, how many rounds, how many blinds,
Mhm.
all of this. I keep track of it. So yeah, or I ask for a chip count. If I don't know, can I please see your chips?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you went back to the main event in 2008. What was that experience like, having just made this deep run the previous year?
There were even more cameras in 2008 and 2007. I I didn't do very well. Just as you do most of the times you enter, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
But I certainly got a lot of attention.
Yeah, I think he bust on day 2 in 2008. It's kind of almost ESPN's obligation. They like to show all the previous year's final table lists, whether they last, one hand or make a repeat deep run. Did you feel pressure to play the main event, year over year afterwards because you had this big score that one time, or was it more of a, I'm gonna do what I want to do for my summer. I'll pick, not let pressure from ESPN or somebody else dictate what I do.
I would have played it anyway. I played it already a few years in a row.
Right.
Yeah, and I just went there because, and I still like that particular tournament. I think it's an amazing tournament. The value there is great
Mhm.
because the fields are so big. So you have this very nice composition of there are of course the very strongest players, but there are also these, what you would call them, strong hobby players or strong amateurs,
Yeah.
and also qualifiers, and the fields themselves, they offer very good value. Some of the tournaments, some of the smaller tournaments, and some of the expensive ones, yes, there is some value, but when the fields are small enough, if you know if you play against 1% of poker players in the world, if it's the 1% strongest, then it's a tough field. But if you play against the 10% strongest players, yeah, great. Have at it.
So in the late 2000s, what was sort of your vision for your future in poker? Were you going to was there any sort of tournaments you wanted to keep focusing on, or were you just saying to yourself, whatever action I can get, I'll do?
Uh, what time period specifically?
After the main event, in 2008,
After the
2000.
main event. Yeah. So I tried my hand at a lot of different things. Um, my bread and butter was always cash game, mainly heads up, or at least in that period.
Yeah.
I experimented with playing both no limit and limit, and but I felt I was able to focus for a while, but the game kind of shifted at some point.
Yeah.
At some point after that, the whole poker world changed. Uh, Black Friday and everything,
Mhm.
and then a lot of the low-level grinders became stronger. So I was used to playing, let's say, 10, 20, 25, 50, 50, 100. And that would be the people who play there, they have usually won their money at lower limits. So it's like a pyramid where the money comes in at the bottom and flows to the top.
Yes.
But one of the middle layers, they got quite strong. So you had the grinders already at 1, 2, or half a dollar, $1, who would extract all the value there, so it wouldn't
Trickle
be
up.
funneled, yeah, to the top. So the game started dying out, and it became, yeah, the much less action.
Mhm. So, at some point, did you find yourself kind of transitioning out of poker and into other endeavors?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I felt, I'm doing well. I'm playing good, and um, I like playing, but at the same time, how much more can I improve? How much more can I achieve? I Okay, I can go to the main event. I can get a better placement, but at what cost? What am I putting in?
Mhm.
there are a lot of things I can do. Is poker the thing that I should keep on focusing on full time, or shall I try something different? I feel that I achieved I achieved something in this field.
Mhm.
I still enjoy it. I like it, but maybe I want to achieve other things in life too.
Yeah, I mean, you transitioned into real estate work. You built 150 apartments in Poland. How did you transition into real estate? What was that experience like for you?
Um, Traumatizing. No, so I had a nice bankroll from playing. Obviously, things were going well. I invested in these. It was two projects. First, we built 100 apartments, and then an additional 50.
Mhm.
And the first project was going really, really well, and the second project was I was a bit too laissez-faire, too casual. Like in at the poker tables, money they flow so easily, and big transactions. So I didn't do super proper due diligence, combined with your worldwide recession and house prices and everything crashing.
Yeah.
So that's project number two. That was financially painful.
Understood. Given the kind of contentious nature of the real estate market, and even with the recession, as you say, did you find poker kind of pulling you back in at any point in time, or did you kind of like say, I'm done with poker in this respect for right now. I'm going to focus on, even if it's difficult, on real estate.
It has always been an option. Whenever I have thought, okay, now I would like to make money somehow, I need to have an income or something like this.
Mhm.
It's always an option. It's always okay. Should I go to a casino? Maybe I can play a little. I can do this. We moved to Prague. I yeah, I started a family, and we were living in Prague for a number of years. Um, and at one point, we decided, okay, let's have an additional income. And I went to the local casinos in Prague, and I was playing there on a daily basis. It was an easy way to make money because this live poker, and I can read people, and I have a good basic understanding of the game. Um, but the hours, the game is not Las Vegas. The games start from 10 p.m., something like that, and then they last till the morning. So it's night work. You sleep during the day and you're awake at night. Additionally, at this time, people were allowed to smoke inside. It is not a favorite of mine, and even some of the other players they noticed. So some of them, to get under my skin, they would sit and blow cigarette smoke in my face. Yeah. Uh, and the casinos, like, they're free drinks, they're also free cigarettes. So it's chain smoking with the, everything in my face. So I started going to the casino with, this is before the pandemic and everything. I had a face mask, Bane style, black face mask. And I would come in, and I loved this moment going up to the cashier. Okay, give me 10,000.
Oh, wow. So from real estate, you transitioned into the artificial intelligence sphere. So how has your career been like in AI?
I really, really, um, I'm very fascinated by AI. I have used it in a number of different projects and applications that I've built. Um, I'm still very fascinated by it and using it. But the whole, as a concept and as a research area, I think it's very promising.
Mhm. Yeah, something I've seen a couple of talks that you've given, and something you mentioned is the existential risk of artificial intelligence and how it will eventually exceed human intelligence. When do you think this point will occur, and how do you think people can adapt to a world where AI is smarter than them?
So this thing, if we have AI that is smarter than people, it very quickly accelerates because the people that built it, they were smart enough to build something smarter. Something even smarter is probably able to make something even smarter. So once you have intelligence that's able to supersede itself, it can spiral out of control quite fast. And not being constrained by evolution and generations, this can go very, very quickly. Also, there are lots of resources. If you pool all computational resources online because you have the intelligence to actually take them over, uh, you can have something very, very volatile and potentially an existential threat quite quickly in that situation. So to me, it's not that we should get used to living with something more intelligent than us. I think we need to anticipate this situation and go about it very, very carefully. There's no way we're getting around it because someone will do the research. Is it going to be America? Is it going to be China? Is it going to be, who is it going to be? We don't know, but someone will. We need to try and get there and make sure that we do it in some way that's beneficial.
And you do feel that the benefits outweigh the harms? How would we create a society in which the benefits of AI do outweigh the harms? Do we need regulation or a government institution?
It's not even a question if the benefits outweigh the harms, because if it can be done, it will be done regardless of benefits or harms. So we need to. Is it regulation? I don't know, because we're not even sure what are we regulating for and who are we regulating. I mean, uh, if it's defense research, if are you going to regulate DARPA, what they can and cannot research? I think it's hard. But we do need to put in considerable effort into thinking about it and going about it in a clever way. There are some organizations, institutions already thinking about this, which is good, reassuring. Uh, but I think already now, Meta had this AI that was reading research papers, and they had to shut it down after 2 days or something like this, because it produced very, very credible research papers that could potentially fool people into believing, in whatever type of pseudoscience it was creating, because it doesn't have the understanding. It's just creating something that sounds credible, but doesn't have any hold in reality.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, looking ahead, is artificial intelligence something that you want to continue pursuing? Are you at all interested in returning to being a professional poker player?
Um, to me, I enjoy a challenge. I do, and I like pushing boundaries. And if I can do something, if I can, let's say, solve a challenge, meet a challenge, that something that is yet unsolved, something where we haven't done this, we haven't seen this, we haven't pushed the boundaries. That's where I like to be.
Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to sort of get into learning more about artificial intelligence, what resources or public figures do you think are the best sort of starting point to learn more?
There are lots of good online courses available.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these platforms, EDX, um, Coursera, Udacity. There are several of them that have very good online classes where you can really try your hand at it, build applications, build stuff with it. I was doing research in AI before all of these publicly widely available tools now. And I remember building these tools, on my own. I had to do a refresher in, take a mathematics course for all the calculus. But that's the stuff that I like. We're into math again. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. This is fun. This is
It all
interesting.
comes back
Let's
to
do
math. Math is everywhere.
it. Yes.
So, one of the things that came up in, my research of you was just how many places around the world you lived in. Do you have any advice for somebody who wants to travel around the world and live in different places, how they can get that life started and what it takes in order to keep that life going?
Open-mindedness is good. And I moved to Sweden a couple of years ago. We lived in Prague before that. I lived in England. I lived in Poland. I lived in Holland, Denmark, obviously. So what I found after, I think, 7 years of living in Prague, there are other Danish people here than just me. I wasn't aware that you can use Facebook or other groups. There is internations. Use some of these expat groups. Look up groups on Facebook. Look up internations, for instance. Connect with other expats because they can help you. They can help get you started and tell you some of these things, because a lot of the time you don't even know what question to ask. How do I start? How does it work here? You don't know. Someone who has been through that process, they can help you tremendously.
If it's kind of a fancy question, if Poker Go ever asked you, would you come do a grudge match against Scotty Nguyen? Would you fly into Vegas for that?
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I would be exceptionally tempted.
What about Jerry Yang? Would you have a grudge match against him?
Would it be fair, even? Why not?
All right, we're calling Poker Go tonight, Sam. We're gonna tell him, let's make this happen. We have an agreement here from Philip. So that'd be great. Are there any other passions or interests that you have that we haven't discussed yet?
So I have my current field. I'm trying to combine all of these things with AI and math and risk assessment, betting and risk assessment from poker.
Yep.
And I'm into, these days, I'm into trading. So I'm into trading, and I'm into democratization of it, which is in the field of crypto. So
how do you feel about crypto given the recent developments with what's happened with Sam Fried and other developers?
Oh, that is unfortunate, isn't it? Yeah, I like the technology, and I think it's good that bad actors get weeded out. But I really feel for everyone hurt by it, everyone losing out. The scams and these aspects, obviously not great. So I see the potential of the technology, and I think it has good long-term benefits potential, but we need to get it. We need the bad actors to be, weeded out and let the market be dominated by well-intentioned good actors.
Are there any projects, companies, or people you want to plug? This is your open chance here to share anything you want.
Oh, I'm making a project. I'm building my own project right now. So in the world of crypto, with the exchanges with FTX, for instance. So what happened was Sam Bankman-Fried and a couple of others, they had the keys to the exchange. It's a centralized exchange. But there are also in crypto, you have these decentralized exchanges where you can trade, you can have your presence, but you keep the keys to your crypto, your keys. I'm building a new generation decentralized exchange based on all my experience, all the math, all the risk assessments, all of these things combined. I have something that I believe will change the market of decentralized exchanges. So fingers crossed, that will be the next thing that I'm talking about when someone asks me if I'm available for a chat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Is there any way that people can keep in touch with that project or with you personally?
I'm on Facebook, like where you guys found me. I'm always open for if someone reaches out. I will probably make some noise once I have something to show that is a bit more ready than it is now. So yeah, I will make sure to make people aware in whatever sense that I can.
Fantastic.
Maybe you can have Havad Khan come and announce to the whole world what your project is.
So I was actually thinking about Twitter, but Twitter these days, I don't even know. Is if I launch in a month or two, is it still a place that I can shout out? I don't know. Let's see.
So again, Phil, this was a fantastic chat, a great conversation. I'm glad that you have great recollection of 15 years ago and some great topics about AI and everything here. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time for this.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for reaching out. It was fun.
Yeah, it was wonderful to hear from you. Thank you so much.
And guys listening, if you ever want to join us for an interview, for an episode of our podcast, we're always welcome to hear from anyone who is on the featured table of the main event, or in the top corner of one frame of one episode and one for 1 second. We love talking about poker, and I hope you guys, everyone listening, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.